Hello, I'm Porschia Parker Griffin, and I want to welcome you to the Career 101 podcast, a place for ambitious professionals and seasoned executives who want an edge in their career. We're talking about all of the things you were never taught or told when it comes to career growth, development, and change. Now, let's get into it. Today, we are talking about Communication 101, how to be a better communicator with Monique Russell. Monique Russell is the Global Communications Advisor you want on your team. She teaches leaders and teams how to keep their top talent engaged so their competitive advantage doesn't walk out the door. Organizations like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, the Centers for Disease Control, Verizon, Intel, Equifax, and Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport trust Monique to guide them in implementing communication strategies that foster connection, community, creativity, and courage. You can too. Monique has 20 years of experience in the science of communications and leads Clear Communication Solutions, an international training, coaching, and consulting firm that focuses on confidently communicating from the inside out. She is the author of The Ultimate Speaker's Guide, the book Intentional Motherhood, Who Said It Would Be Easy, and host of the Bridge to You podcast. Hi, Monique. How are you?
Hi, Porschia. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Well, we are excited to have you with us to discuss Communication 101, how to be a better communicator. But first, we want to know a little bit more about you. So tell me about 7-year-old Monique.
Okay, 7-year-old Monique was an educator. She was instructing her students to make sure that, they pay attention, that they were good students, learning their lesson, going outside, swinging in the swing set. And they also got punished when they were talking too much. And that was because I was teaching my dolls. When I was 7 years old, I had Vanessa, who was the beautiful Black doll that I had. Loved her so much. I had Wooly, who was a stuffed animal. I had Tellerina, and they were my students. So I was teaching them all the time. We had breaks. They got them engaged. And then I was gearing up for my first speaking engagement at the age of 8 in front of 100 people. So that's what 7-year-old Monique was doing.
Oh, wow. So tell us about this first speaking engagement at the age of 8, Monique. You started super early with this career.
I'm telling you, let me tell you, my mom is amazing because she recognized that I had a gift and a talent. And I started in church. I started speaking in church, and I, had my opportunity to go in front of all these people and reading from scriptures, reading from messages. And then over the years, it just continued throughout my elementary school, my high school, where I was selected for debate teams, participating in UN mock debates, and representing my island because I grew up in the beautiful islands of the Bahamas.
Love it. So, Monique, tell us, what was your first job?
Russell Construction, which was my grandfather's construction company. So I was the receptionist, answering the phone, taking messages, greeting people that came into the office with a beautiful smile, letting them know like, hey, Cap is not here. He's out in the field. Pretty much the things that any 12-year-old receptionist would do.
I love it. So you were speaking early, you were a receptionist early. You've got a lot of great work experience that I'm sure most people don't even know about, Monique.
Let me tell you, it was so amazing because, on the construction site, there are people coming in, they're looking to know when they're going to be placed or whatever have you. But all I can remember is a lot of times the phone was ringing nonstop where people were trying to get a hold of my grandfather. And I was just happy to take those messages and give him what they were saying while they were looking for him.
Okay. It sounds like communication very early as well. So Monique, tell us about some highlights or pivotal moments that you had in your career before you started your business.
My business was actually started alongside me working in a corporate setting. So before I would say I officially started or began that journey, when I graduated graduated from college, I left with 3 degrees, one in broadcast journalism, one in public relations, and one in advertising. And it was kind of difficult for me to get started in my dream job because I had just had my first kid. I was riddled with student loan debt. And I was like, I'm not trying to take the thing that is requiring me to pretty much live off of nothing in order to get started. So a highlight, what I did is I just got started working in executive support. And before I started doing that, I worked in academic advising in one of the universities. So I would say in that space, we had a competitive advantage because we were offering a doctorate program that was unique and it was a niche. But what we ended up doing was identifying what would make the program in the school competitive. So I was put in charge of that. And I had to go and sort of like, those mystery shoppers or secret shoppers to kind of find out, okay, we got to find out what the other folks are doing. Mm-hmm. So I pretended to be a student at some of the other competitors. And we saw how long it took for them to get back to us, how long it took for them to respond. And then just through talking to the folks that were coming in through our school to see why they chose to go with us versus the other one. So from the results of that activity and exercise, we realized a couple of things. People chose to go to the school, one of the schools that responded to them first, that gave them their admissions acceptance first. And so that became, when I presented it to my managers and my supervisors, that actually became a new metric point for us. So we were now trying to see if we can get these acceptance out within 7 days or less, within 1 week, in terms of as long as we had all the necessary information, like the transcripts, the full application, the payment fee, we reassessed the process and said, okay, if we get one reference in, we don't need to wait for the second one because it was two reference letters were required at the time. But we made that decision that we don't need a second reference letter in order to give them that admissions acceptance. Mm-hmm. So with that new metric, we were able to really increase the admissions acceptance, the numbers, simply from doing that exercise. And I would say that was a pivotal moment for me. It was fun. It was engaging. It was like, let's go see what they're up to. Let's implement something better. And we got great results. From that, I was also asked to give the entire department training on customer service and training on communications. And I will never forget it because it's almost like this thing continued to follow me every single where I went. So that was one of the pivotal moments that I'll actually never forget.
Mm-hmm. Wow. A lot of interesting work you were doing there. What would you say were some of your biggest career challenges before starting your business?
Absolutely. So after I left the academic advising role, I moved out to California, Silicon Valley, and I started working in executive support. So I was behind the scenes helping them to make decisions, facilitate their decision-making process. I saw, what worked when they were in front of their team and what worked behind the team. I really got to go behind the curtain, behind the scenes, and see how things really work. What made leaders tick, what made them not tick, what made them gain respect, and vice versa. And to be honest, one of the challenges for me during that time was that I became bored. I got in there because, remember, this was not my dream job. It was not something that I signed up to do. It was something that I needed to do to get in there and start making money and pay these bills. Okay, pay these bills. So I got bored. And I would say that was one of the biggest challenges for me. And it would continue to be a challenge for me because if I'm not able to begin to problem solve or to find new things that would keep me engaged, I don't wait for anyone to motivate me. I'm already driven by things that I enjoy doing. So the beautiful thing about that was I was given the leeway to cross over into departments, to get on projects, to volunteer and help, with other areas. And that helped me to build that engagement and stay motivated. And then I relocated to Georgia and, some of the same things sort of continued. And I connected with a women's organization outside of my corporate career. And then that started turning a new set of wheels.
All
So
right.
the challenge mainly was around boredom, but I found a way to solve it.
Yeah. So what made you decide to start your own business? Maybe that's where you were headed.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When I relocated and I got into this women's group called Watts, Women Aspiring Together to Succeed, I was exposed to women who were running their own businesses, who were, thinking outside the box, doing things differently. And yes, fulfilling my dream or getting fulfillment was through starting my own business. And I started that through freelancing while I was still working in the corporate sector. So yeah, that's pretty much how it got started.
So we've heard this communication theme kind of throughout what you've been saying in terms of your background, but I want to know, when you were starting your business, what made you choose to focus on communication out of all of the other skills that you have?
Because it's something I love to do. I started in communications since I was a young girl, so I think it chose me. I really don't think I chose it. I think it chose me. And because it was my path when I went to college, I was very clear about what I wanted to do. I wanted to be this international broadcast journalist covering stories on air. And during the time when I was in the corporate setting, in those moments of boredom where I'm looking for my next problem to solve, I would literally see things in that workspace and I would go back to my desk, Porschia. I would go back to my desk and I would literally start writing out training programs. I would start writing out trainings or things that I observed that people would need or do better in. And I look at some of those things now and I'm like, oh my God, the funny thing is a lot of it is still similar. So that was pretty much the impetus. It was something that I felt that I was great at. Like I said, my mom, she exposed me to a lot of different things early on. And I'm also a mother. I have 2 boys, and I always encourage people to try multiple things, see what your kids are good at, see where their strengths lie. And she allowed me to do that and saw that it was a gift. So I tended to gravitate towards doing more of that. Communications training was just my natural tendency to follow my passion and things that I was good at.
Yeah. So many executives and professionals hear that they should work on their communication skills. But from your perspective, what are the benefits to being a clear communicator?
So I would also say effective, because clear communication is one thing and everyone has so many different interpretations of what that would mean. But if you are being effective, it means that you are having a positive mutual exchange, or you are able to have what you intend to be received, and vice versa. Or if it's not being received in the way you intended, you have the ability and the skill to course correct and gain insight in order to get to that mutual understanding. The biggest gaps I think people have is not realizing and understanding that communication on its face is riddled with misunderstanding. And so when those things happen or those issues happen, they tend to feel like, oh my God, I am not communicating effectively, or I'm making all these mistakes, not realizing that mistakes is actually a part of the process. So you get to be more respected when you have the ability to be effective or be clear in your messaging. People tend to want to follow someone who's clear. They want to be around someone who's clear, not someone who beats around the bush, who plays on the fence, who's fluffy. They want to connect to who that person is. And even in your personal life or your family life, when you're much more clear, the benefit is astronomical, because your health is better. People lose sleep over not communicating and connecting clearly and effectively with those that they interact with on a daily basis.
The Career 101 podcast is brought to you by Fly High Coaching, where we help our clients soar to their full potential. More and more professionals and executives are setting out to achieve their career goals. But without the right support, it can be difficult, if not impossible. Whether you need career coaching, interview coaching, or a professional resume, we're here to help. Check us out on our website, fly-highcoaching.com. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love how you brought in the personal kind of health aspects to communication as well, because I think a lot of people forget about that. And, to piggyback on what you were saying, I think some of the goals that our clients have, with that clear and effective communication, it really could support them in that. So whether they want to get promoted or they want to, land the job that, is their dream job that they've been thinking about, or, anything like that, communication is so important when it comes to actually reaching that goal. So thank you for sharing.
You are so welcome.
I think you started, answering my next question a little bit, but I want to know, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see executives and professionals make with their communication?
Not really taking the time to invest in themselves and to really go into that aspect of self-awareness, because communication is personal. Everything about it is personal. The way you deliver your message, the way you perceive a message, the way you address conflict, it all comes from our own lens, our own experiences and our own views. So I think that executives tend to not really make that connection to see how it is something that is personal from them. And they may think, oh, my team member is doing something that's incorrect, or the blame game tends to happen. Not really taking time to invest more in themselves from a self-awareness or a coaching perspective is one mistake that I see made very, very often. The other mistake is just assuming that communication is effective when there's no disagreement. So it's like, okay, because there's a disagreement, or because you don't agree or see my point, it means that the communication is bad and it's not working, which is absolutely not the case. So two big opportunities for growth and perspective shifting.
Yeah. I love that. And I think, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this too, because I've had to talk to some of our clients about this, especially if they are leaders. The silence doesn't necessarily mean that the communication is effective either, right? So there could be, to your point of self-awareness, there could be something about you as to why people don't speak up and let you know their real feelings, or, propose alternative ideas either. And so sometimes I think people think, well, there's no communication, there's no feedback, right, on what I said, so everyone must agree with it, or it must be the right way to go. So I think, that's another kind of missed opportunity sometimes that executives have.
I'll add to that too, Porschia, because this is a big one. And I know you see it a lot and I see it a lot too. And I often say, in fact, I was working with someone the other day and this topic came up again. And it was like, well, I asked for feedback and I got crickets and nobody is engaging. But when we really dive down deep and we say, okay, well, how did you ask for the feedback? What was the environment that you requested the feedback? A lot of times people are so busy. It's not that they don't want to provide feedback for you. It's that you haven't given them what you're looking for and they have to think too much for it. So for example, let's just say you are submitting a document for review and you're submitting this PowerPoint presentation, or you're submitting, an email that's going to be sent out to your customer. You send it to your colleague and you say, let me know what you think. Well, let me know what you think is so vague. And the person who's receiving it has 15 emails they need to get to. So guess what they're going to say? Looks great. Mm-hmm. Good.
Yep.
Awesome. And so you're back to ground zero and you're getting absolutely nothing. But if you want to know, well, if you're focusing on your fonts, should I use this font? When you send that message to say, can you give me feedback? Can you tell me if the font is too big or too small? Does this content connect with what we're trying to get across? Does it make sense? Is it coming across clear? What else am I missing? What's not present? So when you give people some structure in the communication exchange of feedback, you're going to have a higher chance of getting something that's actually going to be useful and helpful for you more than just is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And providing that context and topics that you want the feedback on, I think is definitely a gem. Thank you for sharing that, Monique. So what are some tips that you can tell us to help someone be a better communicator?
Well, that's definitely tip number one. Make sure that you are clear. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you are clear in the feedback that you are seeking and in the feedback that you want to receive from your peers. The next tip is for you to slow down. So many people are moving at the speed of light. And as we know, the chance for misunderstanding with communication is just a part of the process. It's like running a marathon. You're going to run, you're going to sweat, you're going to get tired. You're not going to be surprised because you know and you understand that sweating and getting tired is a part of the marathon process. You're running, you're not going to be like, oh my God, I'm sweating. What's it's not working. No. So simply understanding the process, that misunderstanding is going to happen. Conflict is going to happen. That is another tip that will help you to begin to approach and not have so much of a negative focus on yourself as you're not actually doing a great job, or putting blame on someone else. Just realizing that, hey, okay, here's a misunderstanding. What can I do to get to a clearer connection or a clearer misunderstanding is the second tip. The third tip I will say is certainly take time to invest in yourself. Investing in yourself is a game changer. It doesn't matter how much skill you know. If you're not able to connect and people don't have a pleasant experience around you, ain't nobody giving you no promotion. You're not going nowhere. So seriously thinking about how to build relationships. And it's really simple. Think about treating people with basic kindness, with basic respect, not having these judging thoughts around them. Think about how you would want to be treated, or how you would want to treat another friend. Now I'm going to get into some practical, tactical pieces here. Increase your vocabulary. Figure out multiple ways to say the same thing, because when we're working with people all over the world and we have multiple cultures in our spaces, simply saying it one way may not actually help you to get the point across. So if you want to become more effective in communicating your message, think about increasing your vocabulary and identifying multiple ways to say the same thing. The other one is storytelling. Make sure that you are increasing your ability to tell stories, to make mental connections, so that people can now get a visual picture of that message that you're trying to convey. I think that's 5. So 6, I will say, I will say timeliness, responsiveness. In the workplace, so many things can be avoided simply by acknowledging a message, acknowledging receipts, responding in a timely manner. This also allows you to be perceived as someone who's clear and effective. If you're taking 7 days or 2 weeks to respond to something, all those stories in that recipient's head might start to loom. So it's like, oh, maybe they haven't seen the email. Maybe they're overwhelmed and swamped, so they have time management issues. Maybe they saw it and they chose not to respond. Maybe they saw it and they just don't know what to do. Now, the way you are coming across and the way you are perceived, simply because you're taking so long to acknowledge, it's impacting the way you communicate and connect with people in the workplace. So even if you don't know the answer, simply acknowledging receipt, saying that I'll get back to you in a few days or so, that can go a very long way. So I'll pause right there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm keeping track for everyone. The clear feedback that you're seeking, slowing down, investing in yourself, increasing your vocabulary, using storytelling and timeliness. 5 gems that Monique just gave us. And one that I think I will add, Monique, that I would guess that you see also, is I encourage, especially our executive clients, to consider other points of view, right? So they think, well, I said this and this is what I meant. Now, after you send an email or you have a meeting, what are some other perspectives that people in that meeting or people that receive that email might have, right? Because I think looking at the context and looking at other interpretations is so important, because I liked what you said about people making up stories in their mind if they don't hear back, from someone. But I think that same thing can happen, just with other points of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You mean not including other points of view?
Yes. In terms of how other people might think about your communication, what you said. Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're saying here. So in terms of them getting feedback on what they
not necessarily the feedback, but just being understanding of how other people might take your message, right?
Yes.
So you can say something one way and it means something very specific to you, but understanding that other people might take what you said in another way.
Got it. Now I got it. Thank you for that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that too, because that goes into the category category of limited self-awareness. So when you are able to expand your area of awareness, then it makes it easier for you to see like, well, my perspective is just my perspective, and not really acknowledging or recognizing that others may find your perspective confusing, or they may not even understand your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So surely I am in alignment with that.
Great, great. Well, tell us more about your business, Clear Communication Solutions.
Yeah, so I was that bored person, right? I was that bored person who needed to find ways to solve problems in the organization that I was. I didn't need to find someone to motivate me or inspire me. And so I find it very fitting that what I do today in my company is to help individuals and help leaders and teams to keep their top talent engaged. This is a group of people I feel are often overlooked because, quite frankly, it looks like you're doing okay. But right now, things have changed. Our work culture has shifted. Customers are changing. And with the recent pandemic, well, not recent, few years, a lot of folks have been reevaluating what work really means for them. For top performers, it's never about money. It's always about maximizing potential and getting fulfillment. So what we do is we focus on helping leaders and teams to find ways to keep them engaged, to increase the effectiveness of communications through leadership development training and coaching and group coaching within the organization as well.
Great, great. So we will be providing a link to your website and your other social channels in our show notes so that people can find you online. But from your perspective, Monique, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Yep, you can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with folks on LinkedIn. Monique Russell, Clear Communication Coach. And as you've said, Clear Communication Solutions, MoniqueRussell.com, or you can do a Google search, Monique Russell, Clear Communication, and you'll be led to one of the ways to reach me as well.
I love it. So I've got a couple of other questions for you, Monique. I'm interested to know, what is your definition of career success?
Yes, if I can work doing things that I love at least 70 to 80% of the time, and if I can be in a continuous state of learning, then I am extremely successful in my career. So that's how I define success, because working in your strengths, it gives you an opportunity to really give the world and people that you work with the best of your potential. So if I could get to do that, and that keeps me fulfilled, and if I can continue to learn, because I'm always in a state of learning, and learn something new and step outside the box, but not challenge myself so much that I'm falling over my toes, then I'm successful.
I love it. I love it. So how do you think executives or professionals can get an edge, a positive edge at that, in their career?
Woo! Positive, meaning that everything is relationships, everything is related to your communications effectiveness. I think you can always get an edge if you're an executive by keeping in line with the trends. A lot of folks that I'm working with right now, they are so busy. They're so smart, so brilliant, and so busy that they do not have time to upskill, to reskill, to even find out what's happening in their own industries. So if you can stay or have a pulse on what's happening, not just in your industry, or if you can find out what's happening in other industries, you give yourself a competitive advantage, because now you've widened your perspective, you've widened your lens into how you can solve problems, and you also make yourself more interesting when you're networking, because you can go deeper into a variety of conversations. That one little simple thing will help you gain a competitive advantage or a competitive edge, in addition to, of course, strengthening the way that you present your information. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you cannot present what you want to convey in a way that people can understand, they will never buy into you, and they won't buy into your project or your mission. So get those skills going, and you will maximize your potential to the fullest.
Well, Monique, you have shared a lot of wisdom with us today, and I'm sure that our listeners can use it to be more confident in their careers. We appreciate you being with us.
It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Monique. This episode was brought to you by the Brave Bird Career Alliance, the go-to membership designed for seasoned executives and ambitious professionals, with everything you need for career planning, strategy, training, and support. Thank you again for listening to the Career 101 podcast. I hope you have at least one key takeaway that you can use in your own career. If you've enjoyed hanging out with us, please rate, subscribe, and share this podcast. Until next time, here's to your success.